everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Adventures of the Memory Makers. About a month or so ago, I put a video out where we took our ARB awning annex room and modified that to attach to the side of our teardrop camper. And in that video, I discussed using a hot knife to cut your nylon material and webbing and things like that. And I've had several people that have seen that video reach out to me and ask how I made that hot knife from that Harbor Freight soldering iron. So today when I was in town, I swung by and picked up a new version of the tape of the soldering iron that I've had for about 10 years now that I converted to a hot knife. And I'm just going to show you the difference between what I have and what the new one is. And then we're going to take a new one and convert it to a hot knife and show you how simple of a project this is. So here I have my 10-year-old Harbor Freight soldering iron that I converted to a hot knife back many years ago. And what I did was I took one of the original tips that came with it and I shaped it so that it created essentially a knife blade. And when you squeeze the lever, this 100 amp heating element inside, or 100 watt heating element, 100 amp, it'd be smoking. So this 100 watt heating element gets hot and it gets this edge of this blade warm enough so that it will actually melt through your material and seal that seam when you go through it. So you don't have to go back and put an edge hem on your material, and you don't have to worry about fraying or unraveling of your nylon material and webbings. I mean, it's an awesome tool. Once you have one, you're going to love it. So let's open up the new one and see what it comes with, and I'll show you how to make this conversion. So here we have our brand new 100 watt soldering iron from Harbor Freight, and we're going to slide it out of here maybe and chuck that. So here we got the box. Yeah, I've never been one in the whole unboxing things. Just open it up. My gosh, just move on. So here, it looks like a new space age tool, but it's still just a 100 watt soldering iron, just like the one I had. Squeeze the button, it gets hot here on the tip. Nothing fancy about it. I think it does have an LED light now, so that's pretty slick. Now, one thing I did notice about this was they actually put a duty cycle on it. And what I mean by duty cycle is they tell you how much you can run this before you need to let it cool. They do that a lot on welders, but on this it says a maximum on time of 1 minute and then off for 4 minutes. So you can run this continuously for a minute, and then you need to let it sit for 4 to let it cool off, according to them. I just keep going. But they do put that on there now. So these are the tips that come with it. And what we're going to do is take this tip, and this goes inside the end of the soldering iron here. So we're just going to take this raw tip right here, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to shape this. And I'm going to do this a little different than the one that I did 10 years ago. And we're going to make a little bit smaller area here, and then I'll show you how to flatten this out so that we get kind of a knife edge. And then we'll reshape it so that it goes back into this, because when you start hammering on this to flatten it out, these arms or these little legs will probably want to spread out on you. So let me move this stuff over and I'll show you the tools we're going to need to do this part of the project. And in 3 or 4 minutes, we'll have our hot knife ready to roll. So here are the tools that we're going to need to make this simple modification. We're going to need our new tip that we've got right here. We're going to need a hammer that we can use to flatten this out with. We're going to need something solid to use to back that up with. And most vices have a small anvil on the back of them, which works great. If you don't have a vise, pick one up while you're at Harbor Freight, because everybody needs a vise. Once we get that flattened out, then we're going to need 2 pairs of pliers to reshape our tip so it goes back in our soldering iron. And then we're going to need just a simple piece of sandpaper to smooth the tip of it up. And what I'm going to do to reshape this tip is I'm going to bring this over and put it on the edge of my anvil, and I'm going to hit just the tip. And you can see where the discoloration is right there where they changed the metal. We're going to hit that repeatedly and flip it over from time to time just to flatten that out. And you can see how it's starting to spread them apart already. As you change the shape of that metal, it's going to want to spread those legs apart. And you want to focus your impacts right on the tip of it so you can kind of flatten that out. So there you can see our shape is changing, and it's kind of getting thinner as we go. So that's the idea, is we want to thin that edge out. So they're getting thinner just a little bit more, and you can see how spread apart our arms are getting. That's okay. Just go ahead and let those spread. We'll reshape those when we get this done. You just want to make sure you don't hit your thumb. There we go. You don't need a really sharp knife edge. I probably got my original one a little sharper than what I needed to. Just keep flattening that out till you get a nice edge there. And it's going to have a little roughness to it. That's okay. That's what our sandpaper's for. We're going to smooth that back out. And just tap it down a little bit more here. As you flatten that metal out, it really wants to spread. I know everybody's watching this waiting on me to smash my thumb. I'm gonna upset everybody because I'm done. I'm not hammering it anymore. So that's the edge that we want right there. So now we're going to take our sandpaper, and I like to just put it down and bring this and just run it over it and try to keep it run it over it like this and just kind of smooth that radius up. You just don't want a sharp burr or anything on there that's going to catch your material when you go. So there's our edge, and it's kind of blunt. It's not really a sharp edge, but that blunt edge is going to allow the heat to separate that material. My sharp edge that I put on my original one, the material wants to kind of bond itself back together. So I always thought if I made another one, I'd make it a little bit wider there, so I make a little bit bigger opening in my material. So now you can see how far apart it is. There's no way that these are going to go back into the gun like what it needs to here. So what we're going to do is take our two pairs of pliers, and I'm going to hold down here really close to that to make my initial bend. I'll take my other pair of pliers. I'm just going to bend that down. So you see how that lined back up a little bit there? So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to bend this up now to try to get these back parallel. So something along those lines there, and then I'll go right here and put my bend back to where it was. So that's pretty close there. I'm going to grab it pretty close to the pliers. So now you can see, well, we're really pretty close right there. So what I can do is just squeeze this together a little bit, like that. There we go. Maybe just a touch more. There we go. So now that'll go back in our soldering iron. And to do that, mine came with a wrench back in the day. Now they found a way to save 10 cents and don't give you that metal wrench anymore, so you got to loosen it up. So that one comes out. This one goes in like that. Tighten these down. And there you go. You've got yourself a hot knife ready to cut fabric. So let's go ahead and heat our hot soldering iron up and see if this actually works to cut our fabric. Now, one tip I'll give you is don't try to do this with a tip that's already been used, because if it's been heated up several times already, then it's going to be heat hardened and it will break when you start trying to manipulate it. Don't need that. So we got it nice and warm now. Just take your tip here and run along your fabric nice and slow, and you can see your fabric just start to melt there in front of you. So there you go. And if you can see the edge of that fabric, see how it's shiny? Well, that's because it melted that fabric as you cut it along and sealed that fabric. So there will be no fraying to that edge whatsoever. And you don't even have to hem this if you don't want to. You can fold it over and do a hem if you want, but that's sealed just like the factory edge. And okay, I've played around with this a little bit now and can see the difference between the old and the new. In this case, the old seems to be a little better than the new. Mine gets really hot really fast, whereas this one you need to preheat it, maybe 15, 20 seconds before you actually start cutting with it. So let's see, now that we've got it figured out, this is a piece that I cut with a pair of scissors, and you can see how the edge starts to fray on this nylon webbing. And you can just take your hot knife now that is heated up and just work your way right through that. And it will just melt its way through your webbing just at a slower speed than what my 10-year-old one will. And you can see how you wind up with a nice melted edge on there, and that will not fray. I mean, that's a done deal right there. So you can use that to cut nylon webbing. You can use your hot knife to cut rope. You can put a straight edge down. I usually use a metal ruler or a yardstick and just run my hot knife right along that straight edge to get a nice straight cut. But the great thing about it is you don't have to hem it, and you don't have to worry about fraying after it. And then when you come to a curve, just take your straight edge out of the way and just go around your curve with your hot knife. So there's a nice simple 10-minute project to turn a $30. That's another funny thing. When I bought mine 10 years ago, I think I got it on sale for $9.99. Today it was on sale for $29.99. So a $30 soldering iron you can convert easily and quickly into a hot knife to allow you to do these types of projects with your campers and boats. And once you have one, you're just going to fall in love with it, I think. So after playing around with the new one that I just made for a little bit, I can honestly say I wasn't real happy with its performance, and I couldn't figure out what the difference was between it and my old one. So curiosity got the best of me. I took the new tip out of the new gun that I just made and put it into my old iron, and sure enough, it just cut like hot butter. So then I flipped them over and started reading the labels on the back side, and you can tell a definite weight difference between the two. Well, the new ones they've dropped down to 100 watt from 180 watt. So that right there, this my old gun is definitely going to heat up much faster. So then I just stood and held this on for about 30 seconds before I tried to cut anything, and it works much better. So I'll give you two options here. You can either do the preheat thing and just click and hold this on for 30 or 45 seconds before you start to use it. The thicker your material, the longer you're going to have to leave it on. So I see these older styles in antique malls and flea markets quite often for $5, $10. And Weller is a very good brand, or a very well-known brand of soldering irons. So you might just keep your eyes out if you want one that's going to heat up really fast, and pick up an older unit that's in the 180 to 200 watt range. If you do that, it's kind of like instant on. You squeeze the trigger and you're cutting within seconds. The new ones will work. You can go pick them up today for 30 bucks, smash the end, shape it like I showed you, and you're cutting fabric. You just have to give it a little bit of time to warm up because it's only using 100 watts instead of 180 like my old one. You can buy commercial versions of hot knives. Sailrite carries one. Last I saw, it was up around 100, $120. So it just depends how much you want to spend. Mine has worked great for years, and I love it. Use it all the time. This will work and serve the purpose for most people's needs. You just need to let it heat up a little bit. So I hope that helps everybody out. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on a new video soon.
Take your time.